So who else is like me? You didn't have shit else better to do other than watch the Olympics and cheer on your country or sport or athlete or whatever the fuck, man. I mean, you know, gaming's slow right now. Well, unless you're playing that Minecraft meets space shit. What is that No Man's Sky shit, trying to find the center of the universe, whatever the fuck? Now I'm playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. I tried the Titanfall tech demo, whatever the fuck. But anyway, is there anyone out there who has Marvel Ultimate Alliance #1? You know, I'm 2 trophies short of a platinum, and it requires you to play with 4 fucking people. So if anyone's out there that has that game and still looking for that trophy, hit me up, because I want to get the fucking platinum on that goddamn game, because I didn't have the trophies all the way back when it was out on PlayStation 3. Anyways, man, summer TV sucks. My Mets are injured and they fucking suck. Football's in preseason, so the only thing left is really the Olympics to watch. And if telling the YouTube author to go fuck himself was a sport, I'd win gold, silver, and bronze in that motherfucker. They have to make a platinum medal just for me in this bitch, man. So anyway, as I watch the sports that I like, and I cheer on some athletes to win their sport until the US finishes with the most gold medals or whatever the fuck, you know, I heard this bullshit story not too long ago at one of these recent Nerdapalooza video game championships. Don't ask me which one, I really don't fucking know. You know, one of the promoters made a comment that it's only a matter of time before video games makes it to the Olympics. Of course, he called this shit esports, but I'm gonna tear into that shit in a minute. But just think about this horrific comment for a second. Let this shit marinate for a second at how god-awful this bullshit really is. You have athletes who have trained for years, perfecting their bodies, perfecting their craft, pouring blood, sweat, and tears into preparation for one moment over the course of 4 years. They walk into a giant stadium under the flag of their country with a chance to compete against elite athletes from other countries, and to be lumped in with some zit-faced, hot-pocket-eating couch potato motherfucker whose only skill is his ability to click a mouse button faster than anyone else? Are you fucking kidding me? Even more embarrassing was his comment after that. This douchemongler said that they had more players or teams or whatever the fuck from South Korea attempt to qualify for that event than there are athletes on the South Korean team at the Olympics. Is that not the saddest shit you have ever heard? There were more video game players than fucking Olympic athletes from just one country. That's fucking embarrassing, man. And these people are giddy about that shit. Now, before I go tearing into this idea of video games and the Olympics a new asshole, I have to reiterate a point I made a few years ago. There is a difference between a sport and competitive recreation. Matter of fact, I strongly believe that it should be defined at this point, because there are certain events, professional and Olympic, that are simply not sports. This has nothing to do with skill. Skill is relative to the event that's being taken place. You need skill in order to win a Call of Duty tournament. You need skill to win a horse race. You need plenty of skills to be a feetball player. But only one of those is a sport, and it's the sorry bunch of flopping bitches that play feetball. On a side note, I went over to a friend's house on the night that Colombia and Brazil were playing their Olympic feetball match and shit like that. I was screaming at the TV over how many times that little bitch Neymar was throwing himself on the fucking floor. It was disgusting to watch. Seriously, one day I'll make a rant about how feetball needs to be less of a bitch sport and actually a sport that focuses on players' skill again, because the flopping makes that shit horrid to watch. Absolutely horrifying. I was screaming to change the fucking channel because that shit was disgusting. Anyways, let's define sports and competitive recreation again. Sports are events in which a participant actively uses their body or athletic abilities to directly or indirectly affect the outcome of who wins and loses. It could be an individual competition, it could be a team competition, but the defining characteristic is that you use your athletic prowess to affect the results of an event. Competitive recreation is an event in which your athletic acumen is not the determining factor of the winner. Competitive recreation does not require participants to athletically alter the outcome of the event. And in most cases, it requires brain power, thinking, strategy to determine the winner. But athletic conditioning has no bearing on the winner. A fantastic identifier between the two, which is not the definition of either, but I don't people getting this shit twisted, is whether or not men can directly compete against women. Now, this is not to be sexist, because believe me, I more than support female athletes in Olympics and professional leagues, and I even feel that women are underrepresented in the Olympics in certain sports, but the reality is that men and women are biologically built differently. That's just the truth, and that goes to my first point of athletic ability. Katie Ledecky is the greatest female swimmer in the world right now. She would destroy 99.9% of the men in the world in a race in the fucking pool. Fuck, she'd leave me for dead in the pool. I don't need a fucking life jacket, some swimmies, motherfucking rubber ducky just to do 16 laps in the pool, let alone do it in 8 minutes. But against the Michael Phelps, or the male equivalent swimmer of the 800-meter swimmer, she wouldn't stand a chance. Brittany Griner, Breanne Stewart would absolutely kick my ass in basketball. They'd be dunking all over my ass, embarrassing the shit out of me. But no women's team is going to beat LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Carmelo Anthony on the court. It's just not possible. Shelly Ann Fraser-Price would leave my ass at the starting line in a 100-meter dash. Allison Felix would probably lap me on the track. Although I wouldn't mind staring at her ass the entire time she's running in front of me. Carrie Walsh-Jennings would curb stomp the shit out of me in beach volleyball. But none of these women would be able to beat their top male counterparts at their event. That defines a sport. The athletic ability of an athlete would win a competition. And in a sport, as great of an athlete as a woman is, on average, they're not going to beat their male equivalent. In competitive recreation, though, that is possible because athleticism is not the deciding factor. This is one of the litmus tests as to whether or not something falls into sport or competitive recreation. Well, I'm not going to go through every sport. Just look at the examples of my definition that has determined. There is no question basketball, hockey, volleyball, handball, feetball, highlight, crickets, they're all sports. Unquestionably, no argument about that. Certain races are definitely a sport. Swimming is certainly a sport. Track is certainly a sport. Speed skating, certainly a sport. However, NASCAR is not a fucking sport. I don't give a shit how many rednecks with shotguns will be pissed off about that. Driving a car is not a sport. It's competitive recreation. For starters, your athleticism has nothing to do with the car. You can be a fat motherfucker. You can be skinny as shit twig. Your body is not a deciding factor. Driving is certainly a skill, but your car is the one performing. You're in control of the car. But if your car is not as fast as another car, you will not win. Doesn't matter how athletic you are. If your car only goes 150 miles an hour in NASCAR, you will lose. No amount of control will win a race with a slower car. Obviously, cars all go the same speed and they're all regulated and shit like that, but those are the rules of the car. They don't regulate a driver. And the litmus test of this is Danica Patrick competing on the series as another defining factor. Horse racing, not a fucking sport. The athletes are the horses, not the jockey that's fucking 4'11" and sits on top of the motherfucker. When your sport requires you to essentially be a midget, that's not a sport. Sure, you need to be in shape, but don't get me wrong, some of these jockeys have the strongest legs and body core you could ever imagine just to control that animal. But in the end, the horse is your vehicle, similar to like NASCAR. If your horse is slower than other horses, no amount of leg strength will kick his ass into winning that race. It's competitive recreation. It is not a sport. The one race event that I really debate about is actually bobsledding. I love bobsled. I'm not gonna lie. I've always wanted to ride in that damn shit at full speed. I'm not gonna lie, I always wanted to do that shit, but I'm torn as to whether or not it's a sport or recreation, because you do need to be athletic to get the push start on the sled at the first part of it. But after you've already pushed into the course, it's basically up to the driver. It's up to the smarts and precision, and in theory, your driver could be a chunky motherfucker, but a chunky motherfucker still needs to be in top shape to push that sled. So that's why I debate about whether or not it's a sport, but I'll leave that conversation for another day. Chess, not a fucking sport. You could be a bodybuilder against an IT help desk motherfucker who plays World of Warcraft and is down. You ever see these motherfuckers? They're fixing someone's PC when they're out to lunch and they go play World of Warcraft on the computer. I don't even get into that shit, man. Doesn't matter who you are. Chess is a thinking man's game. Thus, competitive recreation. Bowling, not a fucking sport. I love bowling. I throw a ball like a maniac down the lane about 25 miles an hour hoping to break pins. But when a 350-pound beer-drinking slob are able to bowl their weight and score, you know there's no athleticism involved. And while the PBA does separate men's and women's leagues, there's really not a reason they need to be separate. The power in which you throw the ball doesn't determine your score. It's actually how you hit the pins. You can hit that shit slow as hell, but as long as the ball is in the pocket, you can get strikes. Beer pong, not a fucking sport. I don't think that needs any explanation. Equestrian, not a sport. The same argument as they made for horse racing. Shooting, not a fucking sport. Shit, Kim Rhodey set a record with a medal in 6 straight Olympics for the United States, which is badass. There is zero athleticism involved in shooting events, though. She's not doing jumping jacks. She can eat a whole box of donuts if she wants before the event, and that won't help or hurt her chances. Curling, not a fucking sport. Sliding a stone down some ice while sweeping the floor takes a certain amount of skill, but you don't need to be exactly Mr. Olympia to do that shit. Tennis is a sport, even though there are mixed doubles where men and women facing off, but the reality is you won't have 2 men against 2 women. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. 1 man, 1 woman versus 1 man, 1 woman. You won't have 2 men versus 2 women. It doesn't happen that way. And as much as it pains me to say this, ping pong is a sport. No, I ain't calling that shit no fucking table tennis. You have a fucking paddle and a plastic ball. That's not fucking tennis. That has as much to do with tennis as badminton, but you don't call badminton plastic tennis, do you know? It's fucking ping pong. And sadly, it's a fucking sport. Men hit much harder than women. You can't be out of shape to play that shit. Now, my other concerned events would be things that are like judged, if you will, because that shit is incredibly subjective. Just think about this for a second. Gymnastics, diving, figure skating, even snowboarding, and you know how much I love snowboarding, but snowboarding in like the half pipe and like the slope style events and shit like that, when a judge is the sole factor of deciding your event, I'm on the fence about this one. See, at least with boxing, if you knock a motherfucker out, you win. There's no judging that shit. If you knock the fuck out of someone and they can't get up, clearly you win that event. But in snowboarding, a judge determines who wins and who loses. Yes, you performed an event, and clearly if I do 4 spins in the air and you only do 2, I did more. But a judge might say, after my 4 spins, I didn't stick the landing, and your 2 slow-ass spins landed perfectly. Plus, judging is very easily corrupted. I mean, just look at fucking figure skating and boxing, of course. I'll probably do a whole video on just dissecting judge sports, but I want to get back to the main idea. Video game as a sport, let alone a fucking Olympic event. By my definition, just because some entrepreneur cunt calls something esports doesn't make it a fucking sport. Just because ESPN covers it doesn't make it a sport. Fucking ESPN covers WWE now, just to give you an idea. They don't give a fuck about events. They just care about ratings and making money. But anyway, my definition, which you have to admit, is a fair divide between the two. And it clearly puts video games in competitive recreation. It is not a sport for the various reasons I have already set forth. First and foremost, there is no athletic ability involved whatsoever. You can be a CrossFit gym nut, or you could be a donut munching, bacon grilled cheeseburger eating motherfucker with a waistline the size of elastic. And that shit won't matter. Your video game skills require zero athletic ability. It requires precision, like shooting events. It requires strategy, like chess. It requires skill with your discipline, and certainly takes training. But when your training requires you to sit in front of a fucking television for endless amounts of time, that is not a sport. And the other litmus test is, can men and women compete against each other? And the answer is absolutely. There are women that would absolutely kick the shit out of men in video games because there's no physical limit. This isn't basketball, this isn't swimming, this isn't real football. We're talking American football, where flopping on the ground means endless years of embarrassment for being a flaming pussy. Your vehicle is your controller or the console. Your fingers do all the work while you sit on your ass, and the rest of your body, other than your brain, doesn't do a damn thing other than not piss or shit on yourself. So much like beer pong, much like chess, exactly like horse racing or curling, video games is not a fucking sport. And much like all of these events that shouldn't be Olympics in the first place, they should never ever be allowed in the damn Olympics. Ever. I don't care if a video gamer has the body of Tom Daley. I don't care if they dominate their game like Katie Ledecky. I don't care if some South Korean team dominates like a certain Brazilian woman winning the best thong contest. Seriously, that's some competitive recreation right there. Brazilian ass contest, all in thongs, right there. I just created a fucking event. But anyway, it is not a sport. It'll never be a sport. Video games are competitive recreation and should always be treated as such. In no way, shape, or form should that ever set foot in the Olympics, and I hope they never even try to petition that shit, because they will get laughed the fuck out. They can continue to have their nerdathon matches in stadiums, continue to make money off of stupid ass teenage games, paying to see the shit, and sponsors like fucking Mountain Dew pushing their products to social degenerate rejects and shit like that. But video games is not a damn sport, and it never will be. And it damn sure shouldn't be considered anything close to a fucking Olympic event. Now, as for my usual, my next housing update, I'm sure you guys want to know about this shit. I got some more pictures for you guys. This weekend, we had another on-site visit, and finally, I have some fucking walls up. So all these pictures that you're seeing are all the sheetrock and shit up right now. Obviously, it still hasn't been painted. We're still doing some things. The flooring is in, it hasn't been stained. It's going to be like a dark stain and stuff like that. But as you guys can see from all the pictures and shit like that, the floors are definitely in. The walls are definitely up. So progress is being made. And the pictures that you're going to see, there's all these boxes and shit in my front room. That's all my cabinets. That entire set of boxes, that's a whole fucking room of boxes. Those are all my kitchen cabinets and shit like that. So you guys can see progress. It's moving along. Eventually, I'm going to be moving into this motherfucker. But anyway, that does it for this video. Hopefully you guys realize that fucking video games is not a goddamn sport. As always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all the good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.